Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Zafar and this is the first video of a series that I'm making on JavaScript. But before we jump straight into talking about JavaScript, let's talk about, first of all, why JavaScript, right? A lot of beginners want to learn programming um, and they ask, what should my first language, what should I learn as my first language? So some people would tell you like, oh, you should learn Java and like C and start with like lower level languages to, build like a strong foundation. Other people say, no, you should start with, something higher level like Python or Ruby or JavaScript to because usually those languages are easier to kind of get started with. But really, honestly, it really doesn't matter which programming language you pick, because it's not like if you learn Java or C and later, let's say you wanted to learn Python, it's not like you're going to start from scratch, right? And programming, pretty much anything you learn in any programming language, um, you can use in other programming language. Like all the concepts are shared. So with that in mind, let's talk about JavaScript. So what is JavaScript? So JavaScript is a scripting language that pretty much powers like all the web, right? It's pretty much the most popular programming language, and it's actually the only language that browsers can understand. Okay, so the browser can't understand Java or C or Python or Ruby. It can only understand JavaScript, right? And it's used to make websites more interactive, right? Because without JavaScript, we only have HTML and CSS, which are obviously necessary, but it doesn't provide um, interactivity, right? So, for example, when a user clicks a button, you want to show or hide different things, or maybe you want to change colors of things, or maybe you want to have like a small game or whatever. So all that is done through JavaScript. So currently I have the developer tools open, but if you don't know how to open that, we can open Chrome. And by the way, Chrome is pretty much the best browser you can use for development, or at least for JavaScript, because it has really, really nice tools. So we can click on the three dots, like the options menu, and we can go to more tools, and the last option is the developer tools. So we can click that, right? And it opens this view. So your view might be a little bit different, but we're interested in the console tab, right? And this is very, very helpful, not just for beginners, but we developers use it literally all the time to debug things. But anyway, so we're gonna start using the console. So first of all, what is the console? So the console provides us the ability to, first of all, write one line of code, or maybe multiple lines of code, and execute them like right away, which is an excellent way to learn programming for beginners, people who are starting out, because it provides an immediate kind of learning feedback loop, if you will. Okay, and the second thing we use the console for is to debug, to maybe if you're running JavaScript on a website and there's an error message, so we don't want to show that to the user, so we put it in the console, so we as developers can come here and kind of see the error messages, or we can see what's going on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start using the console just as a calculator. So I can do, for example, 3 plus 3, or 3 plus 2, let's say, and that gives us 5. So we call this in JavaScript an expression, right? So 3 plus 2 is a JavaScript expression. Now this expression is composed of 3, right, which we call a number literal, okay? And it's one of the data types. It's actually, there's a couple of data types in JavaScript, but a number literal is one of them. A plus is an operator, right? And a 2 is again a number literal. So JavaScript will evaluate, right? We say evaluate this expression, and the result of this expression is 5. So we can go ahead and experiment with other operators, like I can do 6 minus 1. So again, that's an expression, same thing. I can do 5 times 2, right? So that's 10. I can also do division, so 5 divided by 3, and that's 1 and 2/3. So there's another operator in JavaScript, and we call it the modulus operator, or sometimes it's called modulo operator. So let's first of all use it. So 5 modulo 2, it's 1. So what does that operator do? So the modulo operator returns the remainder, right, upon division, right? So 5 divided by 2, so if we do 5 divided by 2, that will give us 2.5, but what is the remainder, right, of this division? So you can think of it, you can take 2 2's out of the 5, right, and you're left with 1. 1 is the remainder, so the modulo operator returns the remainder. So it's a good way to use the console as a calculator, just to kind of get used to how it works. So we've seen numbers so far and operators. Another data type in JavaScript, it's called a string. So a string is just a string of characters. It can be a word, it can be, a sentence. And the way we tell JavaScript that this is a string is by using quotation mark, right? So here I use double quotation mark, and I can write anything in between them. So I can say I am Zafar, right? And I can hit enter, and notice it just echoes it back to me because we didn't do any operations, we didn't do anything, we just typed in a string. So it just echoes it back, right? So we call this in JavaScript a string, and it's just a string of characters. And the way we tell JavaScript that it's a string is by using double quotation mark. You can also use single quotation mark, like I can say I am Zafar, like that. So that would work too. So you can use either or. So what can we do with strings, right? So we've seen with numbers, we can add them, we can subtract them, we can multiply them. We have some operations that we can take on numbers. So what about strings? So strings, we can actually kind of add them together, but not in the sense of adding numbers. But let's see what that means. So I can do I am Zafar plus hi. So let me just delete the space. So notice it produced a new string, right, with both strings kind of smashed together, right? And notice that I needed to put a space right here, right? Otherwise, the H and the R would be kind of right next to each other with no space. So when we add strings like this in JavaScript, we call this concatenation, okay? So that means we grab two strings and we kind of smash them together to produce a new one. So in this video, we talked about how to use the developer tools, more specifically the console tab, and we talked about two basic JavaScript data types. That's the number literal and a string. And we saw how to use operators with numbers and also how to concatenate strings together. So in upcoming videos, we're going to explore more about other data types and other things and other operations we can do with those data types.